Had it with him, he
Are
said.
recording? Okay.
Might have left it in the car.
Good evening, this is the Mount Anthony Union District 14 School Board meeting for Wednesday, December 18th. It is minutes after 7, I believe we're live, is that correct? Tonight on our agenda, we have a presentation, and Sue, would you like to introduce Lynn and the Chamber Singers?
Yeah, this is Lynn Sweet and our choral director, and these are the chamber, or part of the chamber singers. They put on a fantastic concert last Thursday, and I think there's 146 kids in our entire chorus.
Wow.
But this is a more elite group. Am I doing
You're
all
doing
right
great.
so
You're
far,
doing
Lynn?
It's a tough time of year. This is only,
Yeah.
Chamber Singers, there's 22 in the group. Many of them are working in other things this evening, but we have a small complement here. We'll just do 2 numbers for you, maybe 1.
2 is fine.
2's good. These are called Christmas Carols Wrong. So they're familiar tunes and familiar words, but they're mixed up. We'll see if you can tell.
I couldn't get mine to work last night.
Christmas is here. Ding, 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 a ding, ding, dong. Ding, 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 dong. Frosty the Snowman was a jolly happy soul, with a corncob pipe and 2 eyes made out of gold. Frosty the Snowman was a fairy tale, they say. He was made of snow, but he came to life one day. There must have been some magic in that old silk hat they found, for when they placed it on his head, he began to dance around. Oh, Frosty the Snowman was alive as he could be, and the children say he could laugh and play just the same as you and me. Thumpity thump, thumpity thump, thumpity thump. Look at Frosty go.
The instrumental concert, the band concert is tomorrow night at 7 in the high school. A few of you, 1, 2, a bunch of them will also be in that tomorrow evening.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome, thanks for having
Thanks, guys.
me. Thank you.
One over by Richard, and one up by Sean Martin.
So the next item, well, we reversed them. I don't see any public present, so we're going to move right on to the audit presentation. Alan? Or Rick, you want to introduce Alan?
This is Alan.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can introduce myself. My name is Alan Walther. I'm a partner with the Bonadio Group. We are the school district's auditors. Prior to this meeting, I met with the Finance Committee and went through the audit reports in detail with them. For tonight's presentation, I'd just like to give a brief overview of our audit report and open it up to any questions that the full board might have. Our role as your auditors is really threefold. We audit your financial statements and give an opinion on them. We consider your internal controls and give a report on your internal controls, but not a full audit opinion. And then finally, we consider your compliance with laws and regulations and give a report on that as well. We distributed copies of our financial report to the Finance Committee, and just to give you an overview of the highlights of our report, we issued an unmodified report on the school district's financial statements. That is the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements, and what that means in layman's terms is that, in our opinion, we believe that the financial statements are fairly presented. We noted no material weaknesses in internal control or significant deficiencies in internal control. And again, just to put that in layman's terms, as your auditors, our responsibility with regard to internal controls is to report in writing any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we found, and we did not find any. There is a third level of internal control finding, other matters that we can put in writing in a management letter, and in the past, for those of you who have been on the board in past years, we have issued a formal management letter. This year, we didn't have any issues that we felt were necessary to be put in writing to the board, so we have not issued a management letter. And finally, with regard to compliance, we noted no instances of non-compliance that were required to be reported to the board. So the overall results of the audit, very favorable. An unmodified opinion on your financial statements, no material weaknesses noted, no significant deficiencies, and no instances of non-compliance. Just to go through, again, very briefly, some of the highlights in the report. The independent auditor's report, our actual audit opinion, I'll paraphrase for you. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the Mount Anthony Union High School District as of June 30th, 2013. Again, that's what we as auditors call an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give on your financial statements. With regard to the school district's overall financial position, on page 16, if you do have the report, is the balance sheet for the school district. What the balance sheet represents is a snapshot of the school district's financial position as of a date and time, that date and time being June 30th, 2013, the end of your most recently completed fiscal year. The highlights here in your general fund, the general fund being the fund through which the vast majority of the school district's operations run, and the general fund is also the fund for which the budget is formally adopted. The highlights here, your total assets were $4,478,000. Total liabilities were $1,437,000. Assets minus liabilities bring you to your total fund balance of $3,040,000. Of that $3,040,000 fund balance, $1,386,777 was appropriated for subsequent years' expenditures. That is the amount of your fund balance that you use to balance your 2014 budget. And $1,653,791 was unassigned. That is the remaining fund balance that would be available to balance the 2015 budget should the budgetary results for 2014 work out and you use all of your appropriated fund balance. The budget versus actual results for the year. For the general fund, just to give a high-level overview for the general fund, your total revenue budgeted for the year was $24,958,000. The total actual revenue for the year was $25,818,000. So the school district had a net favorable revenue variance of $860,000. Total expenditures budgeted for the year, $26,157,000. The actual, $25,611,000. So you had a net favorable expenditure budgetary variance of $546,000. So the net results for the year were that the school district had budgeted to use $1,199,000 of its fund balance. The fund balance actually grew by $207,000, so there was a net favorable variance of $1,406,000. Okay, so the overall results were that the school district did a good job of maintaining its expenditures within its budget. The budget, the expenditure line was had a favorable variance of $546,000, as well as the revenue sources came in also favorable by $860,000. That's where the net result of the $1.4 million overall favorable budgetary variance occurred. The only other comments that I have are with regards to internal controls and compliance, the reports at the very back of the financial statements on page 35 and 36. Again, as I commented initially, there were no material weaknesses identified, and with regard to compliance, the results of our tests disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported. That is the extent of my comments, unless there's any questions from the board.
So do we want to approve, I mean, actually all of us were on the finance committee meeting. So is it that you would like us to think about it, Rick and Alan, and then adopt it next meeting?
Your new process is you have to go through your internal control.
The financial statements, as I mentioned in the, at the finance committee, the financial statements are presented in draft format now, and that is it to give you an opportunity to review them and approve them. As far as we're concerned, as your auditors, they're ready to be approved. I did note that there was one typo that needed to be corrected, but if you're comfortable approving them, we're comfortable with them, so I guess I'll put the ball in your court, and you can decide.
So, Mr. Holbrook, would you like to make a motion to accept the FY13 audit report with the corrections and the couple, actually, what, the page 3 that should be page?
The page, that was the only thing
Yeah,
I
that was the
noted.
only change of the last one. Sure, I'll make that motion to accept the draft version, the latest draft version of the audit presented to us this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Now, if anybody would like a hard copy, I mean, even though we got a hard copy, I guess that since there's going to be no changes, you have it. It's just not going to be a draft. I mean, once we approve it, right? So are there any
Would this be
questions?
put up at the SVSU
Comments?
site anyways?
Nelson?
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be put up on the site where people could actually get this and
It's
see
up
it.
there now.
Yeah, so they
Well,
can see it.
is a new one up there now?
Well,
Okay.
and there is on the website, all of our historical audits are there.
Yeah.
And this will go in that audit file as
Right.
well.
There's a,
So
Once we
people-
have the final one that doesn't say draft on it.
there's a
Yeah.
tab, and when you go in, it has the districts, and then it has the FY 12, 11, 10, 9, you can look at all of them, and they don't say draft.
Yeah, just so if anybody else wishes to see it, I just was wondering when we put it up. It sounds like it's already there.
Well, this draft is in the board packet on the,
But it's not on the website yet.
well, it is through the board packet. The final version will probably be a couple weeks before it's up.
Okay.
Okay, that's,
So all in favor of accepting the audit report for FY 13?
For the motion,
Excuse me?
for the motion with the corrections and changes.
Yeah? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you,
Thank you, Alan.
thank you.
So we're going to stick on a couple financial issues. So the treasurer's report is in the packet. We have a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So move.
second.
All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? It's unanimous, thank you. The budget status report is in here. And if you have any questions, Rick is here. And we can we're moving along as usual, right, Rick?
I have a question.
Yes.
Rick, in the budget status report on page 2, it has a function for debt service, 5100, and that's a figure of a little bit over $1 million. Is that what we're paying in interest on debt, or does that include something else?
That is probably that's probably your tax anticipation note. That was,
What page do you want to add?
Page 2.
Which one do you want? What do you want?
Line down. 8 lines down.
You got to fix it.
Oh, the debt, so the 5100 is the code number.
Right.
So it's actually the top of the page. Right, so the debt service, it has short-term, and then it has the interest series from the different bonds we've taken out, 2001, 3, 4, the QZ. That's what he's looking at.
yeah, I'm just looking for the $1 million. You're talking the total at the bottom?
Yeah, the total at the bottom is $1,058,000.
Yeah, that's a combination of interest and principal on everything, short-term interest, all the bonds for the middle school, everything.
Thank you. I was just trying to make sure we weren't paying $1 million a year in interest.
No, because if you look at the descriptors, you'll see which ones are interest and which ones are principals.
And let's see, we're only a couple months into the school year, right? We're not halfway through, are we?
Not the school year, calendar year, or the fiscal year, you're pretty close to halfway. What's your question?
We begin in July.
Right, but the fiscal year starts July 1st, but there's no school, I mean, there's no students in the school. the semester. So the next item is financial updates, and there was a little, I think, confusion maybe on my part. I knew that the audit was coming to the full board meeting, so I had understood that there would be budget discussion at the finance meeting, so I think that's what you and Tim were expecting. So,
Yes, but we're fine. We can, if I could just make a short report,
Okay.
it would save some time. Rick just gave me some information here that we'll be passing out in a few minutes. We are in the process of working with all the different components of the next fiscal budget. The SVSU has had several meetings to determine what their budget is. And I think one of the things that the board should be aware of, that when we take a look at the SVSU budget, it's really composed of two sections. One of those sections is direct assessments. In other words, each district is assessed a certain amount of money, depending upon their population, for the services supplied by the SVSU, the central office. And they would include administration and that sort of thing. The other section is money that is direct billed through SVSU. In other words, if MAU has paraprofessionals or other people that they hire that work in the general area of special ed, those expenses are transferred over to SVSU and then billed back to MAU so that we would incorporate it in our budget. The Finance Committee of the SVSU has been meeting, and we have been able to determine a formula by which the direct assessments have been done, and that's been agreed upon, and we're going to move ahead. What we have left open, or what has been left open, is the direct assessments, that money that will be assessed to the districts for special ed particularly. Now, those areas are up for discussion among the different districts. Wendy Pierce, who is the Director of Special Education, working with Donna and other people, Karen, all those people are getting together and taking a good look to be sure that we are utilizing the people that we use in that general area in the most efficient way that we possibly can. Because there may be some substantial savings that we can accomplish by taking a good look at that. I think a good example of that is that in the past, for instance, we have missed a good deal of income because we haven't done the proper paperwork to be reimbursed by the state for expenses that we incurred. There are also situations because we haven't had the supervision that we probably should have in certain areas with special education, and we found that we have had too many paraprofessionals, let's say, or there is a possibility that we have too many paraprofessionals in certain areas. Those things are going to be discussed by the administration, by special education, and will be reported back to the finance committees of each individual board to take a good look at it to be sure that we are being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can be. The MAU budget, the actual budget meetings will start on the 6th of January at 5 o'clock. You'll get a notice on the email, I guess, however, is that the way we could probably do it? We'll get that out to you with the schedule, and hopefully by then we'll have a pretty good format, a pretty good understanding of where we stand. The administration will be meeting with the business office to work out things. We'll have a better guess as to what the SVSU assessment will be, which is a large part of all our budgets, and we hope to move from there. Two other factors that I think that you should be aware of. We discussed this earlier, and the state has made some changes, but the state has decided that they are going to be about 6.5 cents increase in the amount of taxes that they will be requiring as a base. In other words, last year we were about 94 cents as a base. This coming year, I think it's going to be $1. And by the time you get through the lot of other, is that about right, Rick?
Yep.
There are other calculations that you take into account when you're figuring those things, but it comes out to be around 6.5% increase before you do anything with your budgets. So I think as we look into budgets and as we try to put things together that'll make sense to the taxpayer as well, and most importantly, we want to be sure that our educational programs are doing the very best that they possibly can for the kids. Those are some of the factors that we will be taking a good look at. I don't want to go on too long. Rick, what would you like to do with this?
Well, it's up to you. I didn't know if you wanted to hand those out so people can see
I'd
it.
rather wait until we have a full budget and really can
That's
spend
fine.
some time on it.
That's fine.
Rick has some figures here comparing where we are with the state, how our expenditures for education look and that sort of thing, but
We can do it on the 6th.
we'll do it on the 6th, and if anybody we'll get these things to you before that, or maybe we'll, if you think that's the best way to do it. I just don't like to pass out things unless we have an opportunity to discuss them.
One of the things that I'm hopeful will happen this year is some kind of a flyer, or I guess is that what we would call it? Rick, you met with Jim and Jim today? Some kind of an informational flyer that would go out to the public to inform them that there is going to be a forum prior to town meeting to be able to come and ask questions. And this came up, and I was going to do it under the chair's report, this came up under the select board, school boards, plural meetings, and that we wanted to try and be able to answer questions to the public before the night before the vote. And I had sent around a flyer, or actually, I don't know if it was actually 5 pages, so it ended up being 10, from Montpelier. Did you take a look at that, Rick? And it basically was a shortened version of a lot of different pieces of how the tax rate gets made up, what, at the time, this one was for Challenges for Change. I mean, there's always some nuance in the current year's budget that may be different from the year before. So the idea being, in part, because it's Bennington and the Bennington School, they're, to help make sure that the taxpayers in Bennington understood the value that they were getting for their tax dollars and where the money was going was one of the reasons. And it would actually include MAU and CDC because we all have students from Bennington. So I know there's not much time between now, and I'm not even sure the date has been picked. Was there a date picked for that night?
It's early February, as I recall. 10th, 11th, sticks in my head, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah, I think it's the middle of February, which would be about 3 weeks before town meeting. And a lot of different people are going to try and get together to come up with something. And it would either be mailed, like our little envelope or postcard is mailed, or it would be distributed through the banner, or we haven't really decided how to do outreach. But I think we could do that part of the getting information out a little better. Fran?
The other thing in regards to Tim's, what Tim was talking about, I think the other component that needs to be explained is how we got to the 101 for the tax rate. And because,
State.
I understand that, but
I'm saying that's what you're saying.
right,
That one.
but what happens is it makes it look like the boards are incurring these costs, and it's actually the legislature, whoever's playing with these figures, just to explain that to the people. I think that's
So that was the
important.
idea of this flyer, that it would
Oh, okay,
actually,
all right, that's fine. I
It
just,
would actually reference things like Act 68, it would reference the funding. Every year I try and resend out that, the funding, how the funding works. It's 11 pages, and it's 11 pages, it's a lot to have somebody digest and then understand how that actually translates to their tax bill. So the idea this group was talking about was how to take all that information and condense it, and then give people the opportunity to go directly to those links or sites if they wanted to. Tim?
This is another subject, but I noticed in one of the emails that I had that we'll have a legislative breakfast coming up soon, or there will be one coming up. January 20th. I hope the board would support the idea of recommending to our legislatures that they very seriously consider having some type of a health insurance program that would cover municipal, state employees, rather than what we do now, because, and I'm not looking to have necessarily have a program that isn't fair, but I think if we could consolidate it and to have a health insurance program that would cover, run by the state, that would cover municipal and state employees, it would be a great benefit to us in terms of negotiations, and it would take a lot of stress off school boards trying to manage the budgetary implications of a very expensive health insurance program.
Leon?
I was going to say that January 6th meeting, I think, is a meeting that we also have a policy meeting. It's going to put a strain on people for trying to get to both places from 4:30 to 5, from 5:30 and 9. So we, at the central office, so we need to do a little bit coordinating. I like to be at that finance committee meeting too, and I'll probably be late. But what I wanted to ask for, we've been doing business as usual as far as what I'm concerned, and I think we took a little bit of a different approach to things at SBSU and how we start to look at budget, and we started to break down each one of the various departments of the director's departments and looked at head count, services, in an org chart format to try to justify the money that we're saying that is going into the SBSU budget. We did a lot of that stuff. It would be great if we could do that at Mount Anthony, not that way, is to look at by department, which we do break out everything by department, but we normally lump all of it together, and we see a lot of numbers, but what we did do is say if we got 5 teachers or 10 teachers taking a particular department, and the services that they give, and then versus look at the money, the increase in that department, saying, what is it that they actually trying to increase on the need for that particular department, because it may not be necessary, or we may need to look at those things in terms of the class size options for some of those things out there. We got a whole bunch of them that we are not really filling, don't know, but I'm saying, I think we need to probably start looking at these things differently to try to get a hold on where we may be able to significantly reduce something if there's a possibility to reduce it. Don't know, and the same time we're talking about special ed, we need to be talking about services for the people on the AP side of this thing as well. And I'm saying, if we're going to give this much attention to it, we need to know how to coordinate that, and that should be in the bulletin to tell the people what these students are doing and how well they're doing toward the state and everything else, as well as money out here, because the whole school is not made up of just special ed. We got a whole lot of other services and things going on that we need to be able to display.
Well, Leon, I think, just to chime in here, special ed runs out of the SBSU, so I think there's more of an emphasis there. And in terms of getting out what we do, that's certainly the idea. Also, we never did get to see the presentation that Donna put together on sort of the reality of what's here in terms of demographics and some of the positive things that we do offer and some of the challenges we have perhaps with math. And I had hoped we, as a board, could look at it. We definitely will look at it. I think it's a lot of good information in a short snapshot. So yes, Leon, the idea is, I think we talk about this every year about zero-based budgeting, and it means different things to different people. And if you had a school with the demographics that you have and the needs that you have, you would build your budget on what you needed. And that is, I think, what you're referring to. So if you have a need to have remedial math, you would put that in. If you had a need for counseling service, and I think we we do that in an abbreviated fashion as a board because we have professional principals and a CFO that I believe do this on a regular basis in terms of when people retire, when needs change in a school. But I agree with you, it's sometimes good to see what we need and what the value of what we're paying for is for. So we don't have much time between now and the budgets have to be worn by, I believe I don't know why I have January 27th in my head, but it's that end of January, the first week in March, right, or February.
Yeah, it's theoretically the end of January. Since you're talking calendars, if you put on your calendar for a quick, warning, I think it's the 29th of January, so last Wednesday, we'll probably have a 15-minute warning meeting just to warn and sign.
For everybody?
Yeah.
All the districts?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing, if I can hijack the conversation for 10 seconds, that Tim alluded to, but since we're on camera and I've got the banner here, that is the first time. Usually they follow me around, but I haven't been followed much lately. The proportional assessments that Tim referred to, that the SU has control over, those direct assessments are really controlled by you and the other member districts. But the proportional assessments are down. They're budgeted to be a 4.62% cut. So I think that's significant, and I wanted everyone to understand that we've worked very hard to do everything we can to hold the cost on these budgets. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to get that out.
Right, just Rick's just right, that is, and once again, many of the people sitting at these tables were involved in that. That has to be approved by the SVSU full board. It will be the recommendation of the Finance Committee that's been working on these things, but it still has to be approved.
Just to follow up on that, so that's a 4.6% decrease in the total amount that is allocated.
Proportionality.
They allocated. With North Bennington's status changing, there's one less player that has to divvy it up. Is our share going to go up?
Possible. They are not participating in some proportional assessments, but they do participate in others. And so there is a reshuffling of the deck, which could result in some districts, depending on where that proportionality falls. I haven't done that calculation yet. But some districts could see increases even though there's a 4.6 reduction as a result of North Bennington.
But there's services they don't use, and that was how it was broken out. And again, I believe as time goes on, it will be more accurate in where it's reflected. So, are we done with finance?
Yes.
I have a public comment that came to me right before this board meeting, and Rick, I'd like you to perhaps bring it back. Yesterday in the snowstorm, I was actually up north, so I was driving down into it, but I was informed today that the Dewforth bus to Woodford left the children in the trailer park, and the kids started to walk home from there. So if you could please look into...
That's not totally accurate.
Okay, well, if you know the answer, that would be great, but I just think that it's, that whatever happened with those kids, that it gets back to them how what the real story was, or where and how that transpired. I know Woodford and Route 9 was actually closed for a time, so...
We're aware of it, but that is not how the situation unfolded.
Okay. So, anyway, if you could just, I was told it was a Mount Anthony bus, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that things were being taken care of.
And just be aware that it's a Mount Anthony run with both middle school and high school.
Yeah.
But Mount Anthony cooperates with Woodford Elementary and allows those kids on that run as well. So it's actually Woodford K through 12 kids on that run.
And we've been doing that for years.
Yes, I didn't want you to think they were only, middle school and high school kids on that bus.
No, there were little guys. I think that's what the alarming part was.
Well, the little guys didn't walk.
So we're going to move on to the next agenda item. The consent agenda. And I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have one correction, it's not really a correction, but a clarification in the minutes, and I'd have to look at them, but Richard, it's the part that talks about the North Bennington letter from Steve Stitzel, that the MAU, it said the middle school is technically an elementary school. I just want to be clear that it's the Mount Anthony Middle School, so people don't go back and read them and think that we're talking about any middle school. Are there any other corrections to the minutes?
No.
Go ahead.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah. On the field trip to Ireland, how is that being paid for?
That's my question.
Can you answer the question about Ireland?
What was the
The
question?
barrier trip
Yeah, well, it's a kid trip,
that he organized?
but he is helping to organize it along with two
The question was,
teachers.
how is it paid for?
It's paid for through fundraising. Yep.
Dave?
John Martin is not going to be the head basketball coach on this. I believe it's the freshman basketball coach, isn't it?
It is the freshman basketball.
I think it says, doesn't it say head freshman? It's confusing.
It just says head coach.
I think on Tim's piece of paper, it says head freshman, but on the consent agenda, so he is the freshman basketball coach.
On the non-form, it says team, and it says freshman, and then it says position, head coach, so it's confusing.
And that's how it was translated by whoever did it at the central office, so thank you, Dave, for pointing that out. Any other questions, Nate or Fran?
Just in regards to Ed's question, in the CDC, they do have, when they have field trips, there's monies in the budget, and it shows how much the trip is and what the balance is in that budget. That's obviously why you asked that question. And it would probably be good if this is fundraising, to have it right on this form
Yeah.
also, so people know what.
And that's also the families pay a portion.
Oh, that's okay.
It's not taxpayer money.
Right.
That's the question.
That'll tell the people, no, it is not taxpayer money, so.
Nathan?
Do we normally get the letters of resignation, copies of that, so we know what's going on? Resignation.
For the basketball coach?
No, there's resignation here, Anya Pfeiffer.
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah, we usually do, and I
There.
actually asked Sue if it was true, and it's not in the packet?
It is
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
packet.
Oh.
Oh, it was?
In fact, you can have mine.
So,
What a blow.
it is. She's relocating.
We'll
Well, I
change
will
that.
say, I don't normally comment on them, but it is, well, from the things that I've seen her do, so I think it's a loss for us, in terms of what she's been able to teach, and anyway, so it is in there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
She's staying through the end of the...
Yes, yes. We're already interviewing, and believe it or not, I have 3 candidates that teach both German and French that she's been conversing with on Skype with me. I don't know what they're saying.
How about karate?
No, they don't do that.
It's in German. All in favor of the consent agenda? Unanimous. Student report. Who's going to give our student report?
So, one of the big things that's going on in school right now is...
Go ahead.
One of the big things that's going on at the school right now is a lot of the clubs and the sports teams are adopting a family for Christmas. And they like pick out a family and it says how many kids are in it, what they're asking for Christmas. And then the club will fundraise or donate money for gifts for the family. And then they're given to that family who can't afford gifts of their own for their little kids. And I think all of the clubs and sports I'm on are doing that, and I'm pretty sure that most of the clubs in the school are helping out with that. And so it's nice to see a lot of the needy families, needy kids are getting Christmas gifts that they want. On top of that, we just have other stuff going on at the school, like the band concert tomorrow. The chorus concert was last week. Band concert's at 7 if you're interested in going. And sports teams have started practicing about 3 weeks ago. So we're pretty far into the season, or we're into the season by now. Is there anything else more?
And it's cold.
It's quite cold.
Dave, are they skiing in this cold weather?
Oh, yes.
The ski team going around outside of the baseball fields yesterday.
He looks
Couldn't get up
honestly.
the prospect.
Ah, so they were, Dave?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on the sports teams practicing. Not everyone may be aware of it, but the teams, or at least some of the teams, practice right through Christmas vacation break, and the team members are expected to attend practices, not on Christmas Day, I'm sure, but
Like all varsity teams practice through Christmas break.
I remember those days. So they're committed, they're very committed.
yeah, yes.
Thank you. Any questions of our students? So I noticed that the high school and middle school principals are not on here. for
Yeah, we were
reports.
like
You-
talking about it today, like,
All
yes.
right, so we'll skip right on to you.
But I do have one thing. If I could just pass out this, the Messenger was in the Bennington Banner this weekend, and I just wanted to pass, if you didn't get to see it, I wanted to pass it out. And again, the back page, we're doing a lot of Where Are They Now, which highlights students that have graduated from college and are doing other things after high school and what they're doing. And we're looking at the next messenger on the back to do students who graduated and decided to come back to our area and why they decided to come back to our area. So that's who we're highlighting next time.
Great, thank you, Sue. So we have, and Tim, I don't want to leave you out.
I'll take advantage to say thank you to the staff of the CDC who hosted our 8th graders last week. We were able to go and tour the facilities and get an introduction and an overview of the programs. And all 8th graders at the middle school visited, and kids came back really excited and really impressed with it. So I think it just kind of builds that excitement about moving on to the high school and CDC for next year. But it was a very positive experience for the 8th graders.
I did see lots of pictures of the 8th grade students down at CDC, and I think that was really I think it was a meaningful experience for them to see what was going on. Thank you, Tim. So we have a series of committee reports. Has the Ag Committee met, Nathan?
There was a meeting scheduled for November 13th, which I unfortunately wasn't able to attend. But for general information, I'll just refer the board back to the Ag Committee report of October 16th, which pretty much sums up where the Ag Committee was planning on going. And I'm sure we'll have more in the future.
Great, thank you. MAU education, we haven't, one of the things that came up at one of our meetings, I can't remember which one it was an update on the pilot programs that we approved last year. So I was hoping we would do a presentation in January and February on the arts and what happens in our 7 through 12 or 6 through 12, in the arts, and the other was an update on perhaps the pilot technology, I don't remember, what did, there were a couple different devices.
Chromebooks, then we have the science,
Bring your own device.
and then we have iPads.
iPad, correct. So Sue and Tim, if you could figure out which fits better into January and February, that would be great. So the personnel, the SBSU Personnel Committee was canceled last night due to weather. They have been meeting, they were going to look at the special ed structure, but I think the Finance Committee's been looking at that, and it will go to the full SU board. The SU, did the SBSU meet since we met last time? We met the next day. We met on the, so the superintendent search, which I will update the SBSU board, is moving along, and I don't want to really say, I would rather say an update to the SBSU board, so that they're aware, and then it'll filter out, so. Thank you, and then we're going to move on to policies. Again?
You have several of them on here. We met, the policy committee continues to meet, we're meeting on Monday, the first Monday of the month now, 4:30, so that's why I mentioned earlier about the January meeting, so it'll be helpful to have more of our Mount Anthony board members show up for some of that, would be great. And we have more policies that are in the works coming through, but we've been spending a lot of time going over several of the policies, and the one that's on here now is conflict of interest policy. 4035 is up for adoption.
Going to have a motion?
Move. Second.
So that was policy 4035, conflict of interest in hiring.
Yeah.
And Richard, I'm sure you got who that was, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? It's unanimous. Leon?
We have policy 5002, prevention of harassment of students, up for adoption.
I'll move it.
Second.
And I understand you have some of the parents who were concerned about some of these coming to your committee?
Yes, we're trying to work out all the things what's out there. We have the other bulletin that's coming along as well out there for different things. And trying to make sure we get the language so that it is acceptable to all of the districts in our.
Thank you, Leon. So did we vote on it? All in favor of 5002? Thank you, and the next one I'm hearing is January 6th?
Yes.
So, the next item on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's report. Go ahead.
As I mentioned before, there is a legislative breakfast plan for January 20th, just for your information, that usually is at 7:45 at the central office, if you'd like to attend. And Tim has given us an idea for presenting to the legislators, and I think it is an open meeting where the goal is for them to hear some of the issues that you have or would like them to represent for us. So please, if there is anything, please let me know. Pass those along, or please attend. And I also wanted to mention, this past Tuesday, we had a meeting with our school improvement coach and all of the principals of all of the schools. And it was a great joint meeting where we were trying to align some of our goals at the different schools and coming up with consistent plans for how we're going to meet those goals in terms of developing some shared ideas on how we promote student improvement in their areas of achievement, and also looking at some protocols that we can share and possibly come up with consistent formats that we can all use to help improve some of the communication between the schools and with families as well. So I think it was great work that we have started together, and it was a great collaborative meeting. Any questions, Don?
So I'm going to, I have a couple things under Chair's report. One, I'd like to follow up on the North Bennington discussion that was in the minutes, and I read that I was quoted as saying that we weren't sure whether or not we were going to have to vote on a separate policy. And in fact, we do not. According to our policy that is currently in place, I had asked Mr. Sitzel if I could have, after our board meeting last month, I said that I hadn't received some of the information, except for this letter, on the recommendation to vote on a policy. And I believe that the policy that, I guess according to, it was follow-up with Catherine, the policy that was supposed to come here was modeled on the Shaftesbury policy, but in fact, the Shaftesbury School is an elementary school, and we are a union school district, so we don't need to do that because we are considered a middle school, and part of our middle school has an elementary component. So it is an internal, so it says, Catherine and Chambray, I see no need for a tuition agreement. In this case, the MAU charter provides, said union school district shall operate schools covering 7 through 12. The union school district may operate schools in 6th grade, each member districts being, and this is where he bolds it, being authorized but not required to enroll students in the district's 6th grade. So North Bennington is a member district, and for this reason it may choose to send 6th graders to MAUMS. This action by North Bennington is no different than what Bennington has done. To the best of my knowledge, there is no tuition agreement between Bennington and MAU since the building permit. So the relationship between North Bennington and Shaftesbury is different. Shaftesbury is a town school district, and it's not obligated to accept students from other districts. So I just wanted to follow up on that, because I was, as you know, last month, I was unsure of how that was to take place. So I didn't want it hanging out there that we never finished something. So Rick, I don't know if Steve talked to you about this, but I'll certainly can pass this. Yes.
Just based on what you read, it sounds like the sort of lawyer's opinion is equating the situation in North Bennington with what Bennington has opted to do, which is send its 6th graders here.
Well, the simplified version is that they've given them to go anywhere. What he's saying is they've given permission for them to come here. But really, they've given permission for them to go wherever they want.
So then, if that's the case, the 6th grader can ride the bus here?
Sure.
We have a bus in North Bennington.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to review that opinion, but what is curious to me is...
I can post this on our website.
What's curious to me is, if I interpret what you said correctly, you will not receive tuition for that child. That equalized pupil will go in to the fold, which will affect both yours and North Bennington's tax rate. So that's an interesting view.
Well, Sue, hand him the
That's an
printed version.
That's an interesting view of the concept.
Well, and what I had asked was, we have a tuition in policy in existence right now, and it covers 4 different areas, one of which, if the sending district is going to have an agreement, you know, that it's inter-district. So I guess what I was afraid of is creating a whole new policy that we didn't necessarily.
It wasn't a policy, it was just an agreement that you would accept them and they would send them and they'd pay a tuition to it, but.
Well, you take this and you can work out the details.
I'll read it, but if what you said is what I understood, this is a totally different slant on the conversation.
Well, as I said a month ago, I wasn't prepared because I didn't have the information, so I just did a little follow-up. And I will post this, I'll scan it and post it in our packet for today, or for the date for today. So, Rick, if you feel, and Steve feels that we do need to vote on something, I'm not opposed to voting on something. I just didn't want to do something that wasn't necessary and extra work,
Yeah,
so.
I'll get the clarification. It's,
we have so many complexities in our school system statewide that I felt like just if we needed to add one more complexity that we didn't need to, that maybe it would just be simpler to.
this will be a greater complexity than having them write a tuition check.
Okay, so the other item I was going to update the board on is I sent, and you may not have seen it, I sent it late last night, a forward resignation from Peter Franz. We haven't seen him since, I think, April, and his job is keeping him from getting home in time to get down here. So he had written to me early on. I'd asked him if everything was okay, and he felt that he really didn't feel he could stay on the board. So what he wrote was, I'd appreciate it very much if you could submit to the rest of the board at Wednesday's meeting the following. It is with regret that I must resign from my position as the representative from Woodford on the board of directors of Mount Anthony Union High School. My work schedule has increased and is interfering with my attendance at board meetings, and I have enjoyed the experience of serving on the board and would hope that I have had a positive input. Thank you, Peter Franz. So this board can, as BSD could interview, post, and fill the seat, but the seat would only be good until the next election. And the next election,
Early March.
petitions are due January 27th. So I think if we just, I sent a copy to the town, so Kathy has this recorded, that there will be an open seat for Woodford for 1 year. From Peter's term ended in 2015. So we have to accept his resignation.
So moved with regret.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. We do need an executive session for personnel this evening, and I was going to pass out something that I was, it's really just as an FYI. What I've noticed over the years on the board is that sometimes in this, we don't have an actual cover sheet with some of the action items that we have. And so I talked to Catherine, this will be, I think, the first time we've ever seen it, but I think it might be helpful for any of the boards to have some kind of a template on an action item, who recommended it, what the qualifications are, and who it's recommended by, what the item is, recommended action, background information, and fiscal impact, cost implications, if any, and the staff available at the meeting to discuss it. I think sometimes, most of the time, things are covered. Certainly when you get a non-form, it has the backup for it. So, like just for an example, if we were going to recommend, if the committee was going to recommend the MAU budget to the full board, it would be coming from the committee as a recommendation and the reasons why they would be recommended. It doesn't add more work to, it basically puts in writing, like when Rick puts forward an RFP that Steve Cleveland would have done, it's similar to that, but it's just a cover sheet to let you know what the action is that they're looking for. In fact, in the state board's case, it actually writes out the motion that they are looking for in terms of, and the reason it says VHI is I thought about this the time. This came up when we were going to do the VHI, and so that's why it's on there from a couple months ago.
So this is for SVSU?
Well, it says SBSU, but I was thinking it could be very helpful at NA. It isn't needed a lot, it's just needed in cases where there's not it would have a written explanation for the record.
And who would write it?
Whoever's recommending the action.
Is that board members or?
Yeah, that's what.
No, it's administration, you'll see in the form, it shows you. So this is just an FYI of something that I'm gonna talk to Rick and Catherine and Donna more about and see if it might be useful. It may be more work, but I think in the end, a template of what we have consistency might be helpful. So I want to wish everyone a happy holiday. We will not be back here until 2014. I find it extremely hard to believe that it is 2014. I want to comment that Ken actually has pants on
I noticed that.
and no flip-flops. I thought he looked different and I just figured it out. So, you know, it is noticeable. So, may I have a motion to adjourn to executive session? I do not.
So moved.
Oh, other?
Well, no, I was gonna ask the form, is this something that the whole board has to agree that this is how we want the information from?
No, it's something I'm looking at with the central law.
So you just asking them to look at this?
Yeah. And your input is welcome.
chair for a minute.
Okay, we can go ahead with the motion.
Motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel. Actually, Leon, I'm gonna show you the original one for this day.
I'll second that. You got
All in favor?
You don't know.
Get that, Richard?